are listening to Inside Voices on WNHHLP 103.5 FM.
Good morning, or good afternoon, or good night, depending on where you are viewing this in the world. Welcome to Inside Voices. My name is Georgia Goldburn, and I am the co-founder of Circle and the executive director of Hope for New Haven. I am thrilled to have these two wonderful women with me today, and they're going to help us to continue the conversation that we had last week about this sweeping legislation that Connecticut passed this legislative session. I am joined today by Miss Norma Stinnett, Mrs. Norma Stinnett, and Miss Takia Campbell, and I would just like to welcome both of them to Inside Voices. Oh my goodness, I am going to get it for that one. I keep mixing Circle and Voices, but that's all right. Welcome, Miss Norma. Welcome, Miss Takia.
Thank you. Thank you. So glad to be with you guys this morning.
Miss Norma, you're muted, girl. We need to hear your voice.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Good morning, and thank you for having me. It's my pleasure being here.
Good morning. And so for the audience, I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to just share a little bit about yourself. But for the audience, Miss Norma Stinnett is a Circle family child care provider who is an early start provider as well. And Ms. Takia is a parent in Ms. Norma's Family Child Care Center, and Family Child Care is Scholastic Renaissance Daycare, and they're both located in Bridgeport. And I think it's so important, given the flurry of stories that are going to be coming out about Early Start. And I did get an opportunity to kind of break down Early Start, what it is, what it wasn't in the last show. I thought it was important for people to actually see Early Start in action, because what's going to come out of the conversation, I think, or what I hope does not come out of the conversation, is that Early Start is new. It's technically new, but the funding and the program isn't quite new. And again, for folks who didn't get an opportunity to hear the last show, Early Start is a consolidation of all of the funding sources that the state of Connecticut provides to support parents with childcare. And they have gotten away from school readiness funding, from child daycare contract, which is the contract that we have, Ms. Norma, and as well as Early Start wraparound. And instead of having these three disparate programs serving families with different rules and different reporting criteria, Connecticut has consolidated them all into Early Start. And Ms. Norma is a family childcare provider that falls under our contract. Circle manages the contract for family childcare providers, and Ms. Norma is one of our family childcare providers, and we can hear a little one in the background.
Can I take
Get
it?
involved in the conversation? No, not at all. Here we go. We just want to make sure that people know that we are working while we're doing this, right? So we have our little friend here visiting with us. So Ms. Norma, I'm going to start with you to introduce yourself, and then Ms. Takia, we're going to go to you next. Ms. Norma.
Good morning. My name is Norma Stinnett. The name of my program is Scholastic Renaissance LLC, which is a licensed family child care home located at 102 Cottage Street in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Ms. Takia?
Yes, my name is Takia Campbell, a longtime resident of Bridgeport, Connecticut. And my daughter has been a student, a patron of Scholastic Renaissance for, I think about 2 years.
You're correct, 2 years.
Yeah.
So Scholastic Renaissance, Ms. Norma, talk to us about your organization.
Okay, Scholastic Renaissance LLC was started to meet the needs of the underserved and the underdeserved community. I realized that there was a need for a program that was different, that was nurturing, that offered quality, And that's where Scholastic Renaissance came from. I am a parent of twin boys, so I know firsthand what it is like to leave your child in a program where there is fear, where there is doubt, where there is questions, if they are going to be cared for correctly. So I believe it was the right thing to bring to this community a program where people feel the need or the connection of home away from home. The motto of Scholastic Renaissance LLC is nurturing minds, achieving greatness. Because we know that a nurturing environment characterized by responsive caregiving, stimulating activities, and positive interactions fosters a child's overall well-being and paves the way for future success.
That's a big vision that you have, Miss Norma. And I want people to understand, because I think a lot of times people don't understand the background of family childcare providers or even center-based providers. So you didn't come from this world from the education, career. What was your role before you became?
Okay, before I started childcare, I was in healthcare. And in that position, I was a patient representative. So I would see the population, the parents who had concerns that would cause barrier to care and patient satisfaction. So from back then, I was the voice of the voiceless. I saw mothers who experienced traumatic outcome, stillbirths, and had to provide emotional support. I had to be on the pediatric units and see when parents had to leave their children and how they felt leaving their children behind. And I had to be the one to offer comfort, to offer support. So I walked into childcare with that motherly feeling, that emotional connection, that peace where parents, the way I felt, I know how parents felt when they had to walk away from their children with strangers. I remember how I felt when I had to leave my two little boys with strangers to go to work. So I brought that piece there. So I came from a healthcare background into childcare.
And, Miss Norma, one of the things that struck me in the conversations I have with my mother is how she felt when she had to leave us. And we are from Jamaica, and I will share with the audience that we're all three from Jamaica. And we didn't really have childcare in the way that America has childcare. And so you're really relying on people in the community to care for you.
Right.
And so for my mother, she felt that level of anxiety. And it's that story that she used to tell me about her anxiety that drives me in my work in trying to understand, parents. And, Takia, you had to make that choice 2 years ago, and you chose Scholastic Renaissance. So talk to us about the journey that you underwent to finally end up at Scholastic.
It came in a divine way. I'd like to say, I spoke to Norma a little bit about this yesterday, about how I think the making of whatever today is, July 7th, the start of this was in probably 1999 or something. So I know a woman who was a daycare provider, and just to go a little off script of how I embarked on any daycare business at all. Norma has my second child, and I have who's 3 years old, and I have also a 5-year-old. With all of the things that Ms. Norma referenced were all of the things that I experienced. My first child is a rainbow child, meaning she came to me after a miscarriage. And, without having the resources of family, I was hyper vigilant about leaving her, whose care she'd be in. Just a really intense feeling of separation. But I had, what do? We have the children, we have to work. So it came as yeah, a really hard decision, but I looked and looked and looked. And I put my first child in a wonderful daycare in Bridgeport with a woman who I knew as a teenager who would eventually become a daycare owner, you know. And in looking for another daycare, she'd introduced me to Norma Stennett. And, you know, immediately all of those concerns that we have as new mothers were quelled. Not something that I can immediately pinpoint what it is, but, you know, something in here that said, yeah, this is a better option than I've seen at all thus far. So that's how I arrived here. Yeah.
And Takia, and it's so interesting that you said you can't quite pinpoint it, but you knew it when you saw it and you felt it when
For sure.
you experienced it. So, Miss Norma, can you give voice to what is that special thing that you think? Because I know you are so intentional with your program. So talk to me about what that special, that je ne sais quoi was. That
The special thing is I'm a mother before a provider. And when a parent can feel that my child is being cared by a mother, it makes a big difference from what my child is being cared for a provider. So I had an incident where a parent left me her 2-month-old child. And when I asked her, after getting to know her, why did you leave the child with me? And she says, during the interview, Miss Norma, you made one statement that you're a mother before a provider. And that was enough for me. That in my absence, I would have motherly care for my child. And that meant the world to me. That was her only child, still is her only child, and that offered comfort to her. So I think that is the connection parents get when they come in. They feel that their little ones are going to be with their second mother. So and Takia will agree with me that there's some evenings where these kids ready to go home and there's crying. And your parents I say to the parents, how do you feel that your child is crying and don't want to go? And they say it's a mixed feeling, Miss Norma, good and bad. Explain to me. Good, because I know that in my absence, my child is cared for. But then bad, because maybe you'll be wondering why my child doesn't want to go home with me. I even had an incident where little one said, she's crying because Miss Norma has a lot of toys and she don't want to go. So that's the piece I bring to it. I think that's the motherly connection that they feel. And they can say, there is a mother in my absence. And I think that's what resonates with most parents.
And you know, that's sort of like the irony, or not even so much an irony, much more sort of like a tension in childcare, because the work that we're doing is unique in that we are providing care, but we're providing more than just care, right? But the care part is what the parents are connecting to. But for a lot of people, that is a thing that they focus on, but they don't focus on the other aspects of the work that we have to do, especially in early care and education, right? And because, I mean, Takia, I'm pretty sure when you were, well, let me not assume, when you were looking, were you just looking for care? Because we are an early care and education system, but was it primarily that you were looking for care, or was education an important component?
Education was a really important component. And not necessarily the education of my child, Tessa. When I brought Tessa to Norma, she was, I don't know, young. She was a year or something. I was looking for the education of the provider. I was looking for the provider to have a special thing. And Ms. Norma has a thing. I didn't know that at first, though. I didn't start with Scholastic Renaissance. You know, I was looking for a different provider. The provider was, you know, had my first child. She worked out to be full, you know. she worked out to be full. And I said, well,
Was it hard to find care? I mean, I know you had a provider in mind, but I mean, we hear from so many parents that it was really hard to find care. And you have, how old is your child?
the one that Norma has is 3 years old.
Right. So
Yeah.
you were looking for infant toddler care. So how difficult was that?
It was horrible. Once the provider that I had in mind was not available, it got to a point of despair. It got to a point of desperation. I was like, ugh. And the provider that I'd registered with was not she wasn't the pick of the litter.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to a space where I said, I have to go to work. I have to, go back to work. And I thought, I'm just going to, bring my child here. And for whatever the center is lacking, I will do all that I can to, to bridge that gap.
Mm-hmm.
I registered my daughter for that provider. And
so you were very lucky in finding Miss Norma then, right?
I was blessed in finding Miss Norma. This is not an instance of luck. As I referenced previously, I think that this was God's work from 25 years ago. That provider who I wanted, who was full, knew Miss Norma. She told me she couldn't have, she didn't have the space. I wasn't a tizzy. I registered Tessa somewhere else. Days before Tessa would start, that original provider, that's Kamara Moody from Little Sunshine Daycare in Bridgeport, she said to me, I know someone at a really good center, and she had space.
Mm-hmm.
When I got to Scholastic Renaissance and we did the tour, awe, like a slap of awe.
Mm.
And I didn't say it to Miss Norma at the time. I didn't say it to her at the time, but after we did the tour, I figured out really quickly that I didn't have I couldn't send my child to the original center.
Mm.
I wouldn't have the tools to bring my child to her full self. I would not be able to get her to where she is today on my own. And I figured that out after I toured Miss Norma Center,
So talk to us a little bit about that. What do you mean?
My daughter, that is, it's so early on for me to get teary-eyed. It's so early on, but, it touches me in a way because my daughter that is with Scholastic Renaissance, Tessa, she's 3 years old now and thriving. But I had her about 25 weeks gestationally. She was a micro preemie. And, when you have a baby like that, the doctors tell you straight away, 50% chance of survival. In the event of survival, look for hearing loss, vision loss, delays in speech, problems with gait. So I said, oh man, I've read everything. I figured out what the choice in hearing apparatuses were, what vision surgeries were, prevalent in this demographic. And I just knew that I was going to do all the work. I had her in South Carolina. And I said, you know what? I'm going to head back to Connecticut because I'm going to try to get back into the daycare that my first child was in, which was the Little Sunshine in Bridgeport, because that woman, Kamara Moody, had done amazing things with children. My 5-year-old just finished kindergarten. She became Student of the Month 3 times in 1 year. And this is the type of child that the Little Sunshine was developing. They were making stars in kindergarten. And I said, well, I got this probably special needs child who's going to need special attention. She was full. So when I registered Tessa at the other daycare, I knew that they didn't have what that first daycare had. I knew it. I could tell. The facilities were not great. But again, that despair, because I have to work. I can only care for her if I work. Mm-hmm. So I said, all right, I'll pick up where they leave off. I'll figure out, all the things that mothers need to. And then I happened to tour, the Scholastic Renaissance, and I said, look at all these different stations. Look at all the, in Scholastic Renaissance, there is a baby section, like a newborn and infant. There is a room for toddlers with their own beds. There is a section for those sensory sensitive children. A lot of time with autism spectrum, we see hearing sensitivity and this. And I said, oh my gosh, look at all these things. Look at all these things. So I said, okay, thank you. It was nice to see your center, and I left and I got in the car and I cried because I knew that with this child who would probably, hadn't by the grace of God displayed issues yet, but would probably have issues in the future. I said, there's no way I can go to work and have her at this other center and still, be everything that she needs to develop. And it was evident because, when I brought her to Norma, even though she was, 15, maybe 18 months, she was a big baby. She was, probably still lactating. She was so immature, partially because of her early birth, and also because I coddled her so much. I would never have been able to bring her into what she is today. And, I registered her, but something happened. I canceled the first registration. I brought her over to Norma immediately. And something happened in the first month, maybe, Miss Norma. I got a call one day. Miss Norma said, does Tessa eat normally? And I said, yeah, she has a good appetite. And she says, no, Tessa is coughing when she eats. And it was not a cough, It wasn't a cough. What Ms. Norma recognized was Tessa's delayed suck and swallow reflex. And I think about it all the time. Because Tessa's such a foodie now. I think about it constantly. That had I brought Tessa to that other center, right? I'm so confident that she would probably have died. She probably would have lost her life because the staff there didn't have the education. So I know I took the scenic route in answering this question, but education, right? I know the staff there didn't have the eye or the education to know what they'd witness in that cough. They might have pat her back and continued to shovel the food. I can say unequivocally that Ms. Norma saved Tessa's life or prevented her from being in a really vulnerable situation. That single incident reminds me that my first choice in daycare, which was the Little Sunshine, truly worked on God's behalf to send me, to reroute me to Scholastic Renaissance. So I cannot say it's luck. I cannot say I was lucky in finding her. It was more guided by God. This was not a case of luck. And I know, unfortunately, so many parents are unlucky because it's very difficult to not only find care, but find a special kind of care. Tessa's not unique. More and more we see children, our water has metal, et cetera, et cetera. We see children born every day with something that needs a little special attention. So it's really important to have a provider with the education, with the knowledge, with the eye to develop our children to where we need to be. So yeah, education was a factor, but not so much the center's curriculum, more so the provider's own ability to, recognize the unique circumstances of my child.
Takia, I got goosebumps listening to you speaking because, again, we don't often hear how critical early care and education is. It's not just so parents can go to work. It's to catch these things in children early so that we can intervene and make sure that they have the best path forward. Miss Norma, Takia mentioned all of the resources that you had that she saw when she came into the center, and that's essentially what Early Start is there to do, is to create capacity in childcare centers where people have the resources to bring the materials in to support all of the children that are coming in with all of these disparate needs, but also to ensure that teachers have the knowledge and the education to support children on the ground. And Early Start is a program that has several requirements, right?
Yeah.
It's a program that helps parents to reduce costs, but it also provided you with resources to purchase some of those things. In addition to, I do want to shout out, because I have to shout out Joseph Williams from the Community Foundation,
All
because
right.
he did secure some funding from Community Foundation, the ECO, the 3E's grant funding that was made available, and you did get access to those funds to create that room. So I do want to make sure I'm shouting out that program.
Yes.
But Early Start, also, when we secured Early Start on behalf of the childcare providers, I do want to note for anybody that's listening, especially for Bridgeport, there are only 2 family childcare providers in Bridgeport that have Early Start funding right now, which is a tragedy, because there's so many more children like Tessa that's out there that could benefit from the resources and the knowledge of providers. So Ms. Norma, talk to me about, being a Early Start provider, because technically I've signed a contract, Miss Norma.
You will let me forget that, Miss Georgia.
They told me that there's a check from the controller's office. I didn't ask them what check it was, but I'm assuming it's the Early Start check. Mr. Kia, your funds maybe in my office right now, waiting to reduce your tuition costs. But Ms. Norma, talk to me about what it means to be an Early Start provider and how those resources, when it was previously CDC and now it's Early Start, how did those resources help you to transform your environment as well as yourself as a provider?
Okay, so I am very, very grateful to be a part of Early Start. And I want to thank Circle for, paving the way, stepping in to be the intermediary, because as family child care providers, we needed an intermediary. We couldn't just apply on our own.
Mhm.
And Circle took the bold step to be the intermediary. And as a result, I'm a part of Early Start, and I'm very grateful to be a part of Early Start. The funding that Early Start provides is very good. You get it. We get paid every 3 months.
In advance. In advance.
In advance. Okay, Miss Georgia. In advance. Okay. So the funds that I get, I look at my program. Now, the good thing about the funds is I'm able to look at my program. I'm able to look at the children in my program. I'm able to look at the struggles that each child may have. And because of this funding, I'm able to address each child's individual need.
Mm.
I'm able to look at the environment, the aesthetics, and I can say, I can do this, I can do that because of this additional funding. I was able to create an outdoor space I call the Privacy Nook. Parents see this and they're amazed. The little kids love it. When they go outside, they have a space that they can be by themselves. Either they want to play or they just want to sit by themselves. So this funding has really helped me, and it has helped my parents. When a parent come to me and is coming from another center and they had a family fee over there and I have a slot over here, we have the conversation. I have this program, I have this slot, we can talk about this, we can talk about tuition, we can talk about tuition reduction. And to see a parent gets back a certificate from Care for Kids with 0 family fee, and because we're able to bridge it over here, it's unspeakable to these parents. I have parents who are just besides themselves. Miss Norma, how is this possible? I have parents who say to me, Miss Norma, I don't think this exists anywhere else. You have to be a miracle worker. No, I'm not a miracle worker. This is just what my program is. This is what we offer. And when I look around in my program and see how these kids are happy, they have different things to play with. They look forward to coming in on a Monday morning and see what did Miss Norma buy new. They know there's something new. Then I provide blankets, and as Takia says, they sleep on beds. So each child in my program has a toddler bed, and I provide blankets. Yes, Miss Georgia. So, and that was coming from a space where I encountered a child once, and just through play and what I heard during play, I realized that this child was familiar with possibly sleeping on the floor.
Mhm.
So to me, the cuts replicated that, and I didn't want to give. I wanted to give the child a different experience. So I brought toddler beds into my program. So the kids really look forward to going to it's nap time. They know their beds by location, and they look forward to their blankets. I'm able to provide bed linen, different blankets. They will choose. They're excited to see what's on the blankets. The different sensors that I have in the program, I can buy different things for it. And I'm going to be honest, Early Start is a game changer.
Yeah. Expand upon that. How is it a game changer for you as a provider?
Okay, it's like, as I said, it's a game changer because of the amount of, the funding.
Mhm.
It is able to help me as a provider with my bottom line, my personal, pay.
Mhm.
My son, who is my substitute, I'm able to pay him more because he doesn't hesitate to remind me that he has a bachelor's degree, and he doesn't care whether it is in ECE. He's reminding me it's a bachelor's degree, mommy, and people are calling me from Stanford, so he doesn't leave that out. So I have to. It enables me to pay him and to have staff retention,
Mhm.
and it enables me, as I said, to provide for my program on a different level that is obvious to the parents. It has transformed my program. You
And
walk
that
in and
was
you
and that was
realize that you are somewhere.
yeah. And that was the goal of these two pieces of legislation, HB 5003 and SB 1, was to
Right.
ensure that providers, because again, childcare has a broken financial model,
Mhm.
and it was only mostly accessible to parents that can pay, and even sometimes parents who can pay couldn't find slots. But this Early Start grant funding is designed to reduce the cost for parents, as well as to increase the working or improve the working conditions for providers as well as for their staff. So it sounds to me, Ms. Norma, that you are saying that it has achieved all of those things for you.
Yes, it has. Early Start has done that.
So, Ms. Norma, I noticed on the back of your wall your degree and your graduation stuff. And so I do want to call that out because one of the requirements for Early Start is, well, Early Start has a couple of requirements. One is for people to get their bachelor's degree, and in either early child education, or they've also changed the law to say that if you already have a bachelor's degree, you just would need 12 early child education credits to become educationally qualified to work in childcare, as well as to become accredited. And accreditation is a designation that is put on a program that has gone through a process whereby they're meeting certain quality standard, and someone, more specifically, the National Association for Education of Young Children or the National Association for Family Child Care, will come in and evaluate the quality of your program and then give you that designation that says that this is a high quality program. So those are the two major requirements that you have to meet by receiving Early Start grant funding. Ms. Sommer, you didn't have to go the route that you chose because you already had a degree. But talk to me about why you chose to go back and to get your degree in early child education.
I went back to get my degree in early childhood because I needed to have a better understanding of the children that I serve.
Mhm.
I needed to be able to assess them, observe them, and put a name to things that I see. So during an interview with a parent or a child, going back to school, I'm able to see children through a different lens. Things that didn't have any meaning to me prior to going to school now has meaning to me. And going back to school has just opened my knowledge, opened my eyes, opened my understanding to better understanding early care and what I should be doing as an intentional teacher.
Hmm. And you call me all the time, Miss Norma. I sometimes I think, is Miss Norma just calling me to tell me how brilliant she is? And
Stop.
but you call me all the time, Miss Norma, to talk about some of the things that you're recognizing with children and
Right.
how going through an early child education program. And you went to um, Charter Oak.
Post university.
Oh, Post University. Yes. So, and Post again is one of the partners of Circle that make these courses available. But you would call me and talk about some of the things that you're noticing with children, and you can make the connection between what you were being taught in that classroom and how the strategies that you received from going through that program actually helped and support you on the ground. So, do you want to share?
Y- yes. As you correctly said, Georgia, going back to school has opened my eyes to a lot, and I would call you to share with you what I've observed and even to seek help because sometimes you learn strategies that doesn't necessarily work with every child. You need additional information or additional suggestions. So I remember doing an interview with a child, and going back to school, I was able to just during the interview, I would say the child was almost 3 years old, and I would say, "Hi, how are you?" And I get back, "Hi, how are you?" And what is your name? I get back, "What is your name?" The light bulb went off. We are
Mm-hmm,
listening to immediate echolalia. At
mm-hmm,
that age, that's not the right way to go. I realized there's no eye contact. I realized they're walking on the toes. I realized the child is running from one end of the daycare to the next. All of that sends it off. Before I would say this child is repeating, now I know the term echolalia.
mm-hmm,
I know that at 3 years old, it's not supposed to happen.
mm-hmm.
We have something going on here. So my conversation with the parent now, because of the knowledge, I know how to speak with the parent. Do you have any concerns about your child? Before I would say, this is what I am concerned. Did you notice this? Now I have the better tools. Do
Mhm,
you have any concerns? And the parent may say no. Maybe after a while, I may say to the parent, a few weeks, I would say, this is my observation. Did you notice that? The parent may say, yes, Miss Norma, but I didn't pay it any attention. Then I would say, it is concerning for me, so I would ask you to speak with your pediatrician.
mhm,
Parents might say, Miss Norma, yes, but is there anything else you suggest? I said, well, we have this program called Birth to Three. They are the experts. So you can do the referral or I can do the referral. What do you want to do? 9 out of 10 chances they say, you, Miss Norma, you do the referral. Now I'm able to call Birth to Three with the ECE language of what my concerns are. So Birth to Three walks in with an understanding of my concern. So the observation is done there, and most of the time, it's Birth to Three comes out with exactly my observation because
mhm,
I'm not able to diagnose. But based on the knowledge that I receive, I'm able to see when something is not right and catch it at an early stage. Because the earlier, the better. I remember I called you on a case and I said, Georgia, the child is almost 3. What do I do? You said, call it in anyway, they will come. We catch it in the nick of time. Birth to Three cutoff was 45 days. We caught it 49 days because the child was very new to my program.
yeah.
So, and I remember I had a child too that struggled with separation anxiety. I gave her the whole overview of this child. And I said, Georgia, I cannot do diaper change without this child wailing. I've tried everything. And I said, Georgia, I bring him inside the changing room, but he still wails. You said to me, is the attention, Norma? He believes your attention is focused on the child on the changing table. Give him a diaper so he feels as if he's participating. You remember that conversation? Yes. So, even I brought him in because I realized it was separation anxiety. But I never thought of giving him the diaper to let him feel as if he was participating in the care. Because I figured I'd covered everything now because you're with me. You're
Mhm,
standing beside me. You're not be outside the gate. There's no barrier.
mhm.
But you still believe my attention is on this child. How dare you, Miss Norm? I'm right here. Let me feel like a part of what you're doing. And once I handed the diaper, the wailing stopped, because he would cry for his friends but wailed for himself. I just couldn't understand. I said, Georgia, this one beats me. I don't know where to go with this. And, so the communication is there, to be able to speak to someone else with the knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
and just be able to say what my concerns are, use the language, exactly where I'm coming from. Because I remember when I called you, I said, Georgia, the echolalia, you said, Norma, it's a pleasure to hear you identify that.
Again, not a lot of people understand speech is so different with different children.
Right,
That knowledge of
right,
being in school, as Takia said, it wasn't the education for me. And I think a lot of providers, again, don't understand that the parents are concerned primarily with the care, and care is connected to your knowledge, right? And I always say, and Miss Norma, I say degree is not dispositive
right,
of a quality outcome for children, but
right.
going back to school and getting trained in this work is so important, because there's so much that you can catch. So I did want to talk about accreditation, but we don't have the time. But the critical thing I want to talk about is the money, right, for parents, because this grant significantly reduces the cost for parents, right? And that's the big McGillicuddy of this bill, is like, we are reducing costs for parents. So Takia, and you don't have to share what you don't feel comfortable with sharing, but this grant basically allows you to reduce your tuition, or allows Miss Norma to reduce your tuition significantly. So was there a huge difference in what you were paying? And I see you smiling together. And I know the answer, but I want you to just share as much as you are open to share. How significant was the reduction in tuition? Because you were there before Miss Norma received. Were you there before Miss Norma received early?
Yes.
All right. So talk to me about like pre-early start, post-early start. What does that weekly tuition payment look like?
It's so funny that you said what I am comfortable sharing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because anyone who is viewing this or listening to this is in a similar situation. They can relate in one capacity or the other, right? We're probably parents and we probably work. So I can tell you all very candidly that this was pivotal. This is like I don't know. I just feel like every time I start to talk, I get teary-eyed, and I wonder if it discredits me. Like, it's not.
No, not at all. Not at all.
This is something that I thought about with both children, because it's like you know that you want a provider of a certain
Caliber.
ilk,
Yes.
right? You want you don't want to. That doesn't come without a cost, and that's just the reality of it. So I struggled to pay Miss Norma monthly. I think it was in the neighborhood of like 5. Was that it monthly? Was it?
Yes, yes,
In the
yes.
5s. And I struggled to pay it because, my 5-year-old, I think she was 4 something at the time, at a private school, and I'm paying tuition for her. And then managing all the bills that a person manages. When that reduction came, I don't know if you remember this, Miss Norma. Like, I was a little bit salty with her because I was like, she's lying. This
Yes,
is a pity party. She's lying. When she said there's been, a reduction and I'm able and I got the funding, and I was like, what? And she said, no, truly. And she may have shown me a document to reaffirm it, because mind blowing. Why was it mind blowing? Is because it took me from in the 5s to 0.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And I cry all the time anyway. So here I am standing in front of, because how is this possible? How is this possible? But, you know, divine timing, I don't know. And divine timing, because I'd ultimately become laid off. You know, I worked in solar as a result of our House Reconciliation Act. Solar is facing a lot of cuts.
Mhm.
And a part of that is my position being completely eliminated,
Mhm.
right? So while I'm in transition, I'm not asking, I would not have been able to keep Tessa at Scholastic Renaissance. Um, you know, if we're just looking at all things financial, I would not be able to keep her there. So you talk about life saving, you talk about pivotal. Um, it's had a huge impact on, because it's not just keeping Tessa there
Mhm.
and making sure that Norma gets paid. It's a trick. If Tessa does not stay, it disrupts the entire um, environment for us all.
Mhm.
Because now I still have to find childcare, and without the funding, um, and if I tried to keep her in, then my other daughter's education would suffer. You know, something would fall apart. So I can't talk about enough the gratitude and just the shock. The shock. I could not believe such a thing existed. I didn't believe Miss Norma initially. I was certain. I went home and did a little Google because I said, "Oh my gosh, she really does speak to being a parent before a provider." But I'm saying, how dare Miss Norma pity me? How dare her? I couldn't believe that a program like that existed for parents. So yeah, it's been huge.
So, Takia, this is what the governor is now proposing to make statewide,
Yeah.
right? So, talk to the parents that are going to be listening to this interview about how, again, and I think we've shared that, but really speak to that parent and tell that parent that doesn't have this grant fund but is on the verge of getting it, how transformation it has been in your budget.
Aside from the obvious, I'm a little bit of I'd like to think that I have some foresight, and I'm always thinking where my children are concerned about the tomorrows. I think what the endowment has done is pretty obvious. I can continue to send my child to school. I can continue to focus on work. I can, do these obvious things. But something that I think may not be immediately obvious is the long-term impact of a program like this. What this means is that Tessa can continue. What continuing means is that she's able to get a holistic experience. I don't have to pull her out and bounce her and raffle her around. She's able to forge and maintain relationships with her peers, which has been amazing for her. What some of this funding has done, I don't know which one it was, but talking about the improvements at the facility is the improvements in the laboratory, right? Because of Tessa's peers here, they were all potty trained and she was lagging. Because of that improvement, she's now potty trained. This is only because I'm able to keep her here. Putting her in another center, she would have lost something, right? So she's able to maintain those relationships. She's able to continue under Miss Norma's tutelage and develop a really strong educational foundation.
That's so important, and I so appreciate you sharing that. And I'm gonna take this last 2 minutes, Miss Norma, for you to talk about what's on the horizon, what's possible for parents in terms of getting your information and having the experience that Takia just described.
Okay, so for Scholastic Renaissance, we plan to, hopefully be a part of the large family child care home so we can have more kids.
Mhm.
We want to be more involved in the community, empower parents to let them know that they have a voice. We want to be more active, to be the voice of the voiceless, especially for the parents who have special needs kids. This summer, really hit hard to me because I have a family of 4 with a set of twins, and one has special needs, and that they're all in camp, and they had to terminate the one with special needs because they didn't have the resources for that. And mom says to me every morning, they see the siblings going off to camp, and this child is home. So it has rested on me. I don't know, I have to be a champion for this. I have to champion the cause, that someone has to realize that come summer we have to have something in place for these special needs kids.
Mhm.
I understand that the counselors in these programs are not trained to handle them, but we need to have resources in place so they too can have a summer full of excitement, full of experience, full of adventure. We have this during the school year where they have their team to work with them, but during the summer it all falls apart. So I want to be more active in that area. Wherever I need to go, whoever I need to speak with, I want to be the voice of the voiceless, the voice of the silent ones. I want to have more connect, the homeschool connection with the parents. I
Mhm.
want to boost that more, because we know that it's very important in the growth and development of a child, the homeschool connection.
So, Miss Norma, we are going to have to stop you right there to just give your contact info to parents so that they can find you in Bridgeport. How do they find
Okay, so my website is srenaissance.wix.com/childcare, and we're also on Facebook and Instagram, Scholastic Renaissance LLC. My IT team is revamping my social media, so we should be up and running by the end of this week.
Oh, and what's your telephone number, Miss Norma?
203-727-2527.
Okay,
And
so
email scholasticrenaissance@gmail.com.
I want to take this opportunity to thank you both, ladies, for sharing that. Again, this gave me goosebumps listening to this, even though I'm in this world, and I do this work with providers and with parents. It's always, moving and chilling and uplifting and sometimes depressing to hear the stories. But this is wonderful story. Takia, thank you for sharing your story. Miss Norma, thank you for sharing all the good works with Scholastic Renaissance with the world. We'll definitely make sure that the commissioner get eyes on this video and certainly forward this to the governor's office so that they can fully understand what this with this legislation will mean for parents and what it has meant for parents on the ground. So thank you all again. Thank you to the audience for listening, and join us in the next 2 weeks for another version of Inside Voices where we talk to more providers and more parents. Thank you all.
Okay, goodbye. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
You all. Thank you for being here.